Welcome to this week's edition of Flashback Friday, your opportunity to get some good review by listening to episodes from the past that Jason has handpicked to help you today in the present and propel you into the future. Enjoy.
Welcome to the Creating Wealth Show with Jason Hartman. You're about to learn a new slant on investing, some exciting techniques, and fresh new approaches to the world's most historically proven asset class that will enable you to create more wealth and freedom than you ever thought possible. Jason is a genuine self-made multimillionaire who's actually been there and done it. He's a successful investor, lender, developer, and entrepreneur who's owned properties in 11 states, had hundreds of tenants, and been involved in thousands of real estate transactions. This program will help you follow in Jason's footsteps on the road to your financial independence day. You really can do it. And now, here's your host, Jason Hartman, with the complete solution for real estate investors.
Welcome to the Creating Wealth Show. This is your host, Jason Hartman, episode number 568. We've got a bunch of things to talk to you about today. I've got Naresh here with me, and one of the things you may not have heard of, it's the labor content fallacy. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about the future, and as Yogi Berra said, the future ain't what it used to be. And I think that quote was very prescient based on what's going on nowadays. So a lot of good stuff. Let's dive in. How are you, Naresh?
I'm doing great, Jason. Just doing my thing in Florida. How's San Diego treating you?
Good. Life is good. I got to tell you, though, like I said before, the weather here is not as good as Phoenix. I know many people think I'm crazy, but whatever. We did all the small talk on that before, so let's not do it again this time. Let's dive in and talk. We got a lot of stuff on the agenda today. And, we talk a lot about economics, inflation, employment, unemployment, what it means to real estate investors, and how we can design our investment portfolio for these big changes, how we can design our investment portfolio for the misleading statistics that we get from the government, how we can design our portfolio for, the absolute stupidity that goes on in government and what goes on in Washington, D.C. We know that Wall Street basically owns Congress. Their lobbyists are there every day of the year, or every day they're in session at least, and they're constantly influencing them to make laws in their favor. And so, we got to take matters into our own hands as investors. We've got to do what makes sense for us and what will protect us from all of these various forces that are so out of control and so opposite our interest. And, some of the forces are good overall, like technology, and we're going to talk about that today when we dive into the labor content fallacy. They have significant impact to us as real estate investors, some of which may be deflationary, some of which may really cause us to abandon or really rethink in very significant ways the three cardinal rules of real estate. And I've talked about this before. What are the three cardinal rules? Come on, folks. We all know them. Location, and location. But technology could really change that pretty significantly, I think. So that's probably a good opportunity for our style of investing. I think it is. So we'll dive into that today. What should we cover first?
How about we talk a little bit about the labor content fallacy?
Okay, so this is a big one. So first of all, what the heck is the labor content fallacy? It reminds me of the concept of the zero-sum game. We've heard that before. This is what I think is one of the huge fallacies of the left-wing political ideology. And so when it comes to the zero-sum game, which is somewhat similar to the labor content fallacy, not exactly, and kind of the Malthusian idea, these things all relate to each other, I think. And here's why. The zero-sum game says that if the government needs more money, it should just simply raise taxes. But that doesn't work, because when you raise taxes, you change the incentive structure of people and the way they organize their lives and the way they spend and invest. And ultimately what you do when you raise taxes, I say, is that you, in the medium to long run, maybe not the immediate short run, but the medium run, which means a couple of years, and the long run, of course, the next decade, you reduce tax revenue. And Reagan proved this, and Arthur Laffer proved this. Now, many people have maligned those guys, okay? Arthur Laffer, by the way, was the guy who created what's called the Laffer curve. And they believe that they really proved the validity of supply-side economics, of trickle-down economics. And largely, I think this holds water. I think it's true today. And, we've seen that. We even saw that with Bill Clinton, with his administration, in so many ways. And so, if you increase taxes, people reduce investment because they're not rewarded to invest. And when you reduce investment, you decrease overall economic activity. And when you decrease overall economic activity, you ultimately decrease tax revenue. And that's bad for everybody. So the labor content fallacy is kind of similar to that, isn't it? Because when we talk about technology and the disruption of technology and the fear of people losing their jobs and high unemployment, and we talk about robotics and the self-driving cars and 3D printing and nanotechnology and biotechnology and energy technology and all of this stuff, where we appear to be at the point in history where this is like a hockey stick on a graph. And that hockey stick represents exponential growth. Maybe we're there. Maybe it's just another advancement like it always has been. Like when they invented, when Edison, well, really maybe it was Tesla who did it, but who knows who should get the credit, invented the electric light bulb, okay? And, when the steam engine was invented, when the wheel was invented, when fire was discovered, that's not an invention, that's a discovery. But, maybe that's what everybody thought throughout history. What are your thoughts? Remember, you're listening to Flashback Friday. Our new episodes are published every Monday and Wednesday.
So first off, this is all in my opinion, it's good stuff. This is good for innovation. It's good for technology. And as you just discussed, it's good for the economy, because what this is doing, this labor content fallacy, it essentially means that people are no longer required to produce products and to run the products. We can now automate. And to give you some examples...
Run the manufacturing, you mean to say? Yeah.
Right. Run the manufacturing. Just many different facets of the product cycle. And to give you an example, let's take the driverless cars. Do you want to take the driverless cars? Or
Yeah. So I think the self-driving car, the autonomous car, really is going to hurt all of these people who bought high-end real estate with expensive land. Now, that goes back to the Hartman Risk Evaluator, right? Where I say buy properties with cheaper free land, so you're essentially a commodities investor. Because the high land value markets are the cyclical markets, the ones with the big shifts, where the prices are high and low, and they are the roller coaster ride. They always have been. I don't like that. As a conservative, prudent investor, I like reliable cash flow, mailbox money. That's my view of it. So Naresh, I want to play a little audio clip for our listeners, and I'm sure you're going to have some comments about it, because I'm not the only one who sees the effects of the autonomous vehicle on real estate. Listen into this.
Autonomous cars will be commonplace by 2025 and have a near monopoly by 2030, and the sweeping change they bring will eclipse every other innovation our societies experience. That's prediction of a blog posted in the Tech and Science section on CBSSF.com. It's called How Uber's Autonomous Cars Will Destroy 10 Million Jobs and Reshape the Economy by 2025. For more, we're joined on the KCBS Ring Central.
And that's the other big concern we're going to talk about today. When you mention the labor content fallacy and, 10 million jobs, I mean, can you imagine 10 million jobs evaporating? How terrible that sounds, but maybe it's not so bad. So hang on a second and we'll talk about that.
Newsline by its author, Zach Cantor, a founder of several startups in the automotive space. Good morning. Thanks for joining us.
Hey, good morning, Stan. Good morning, Holly.
The title of the post is ominous, to say the least. How exactly is this going to work?
Well, I think, when a lot of people think about the future, I think it's easy to imagine a lot of the major things have already happened or that they're going to occur in the distant future. But I think these things are going to happen in the next few years. And, when you look at the major automakers and startup automakers like Tesla, they're going to have fully autonomous cars on the road by 2020. So that's not really a prediction or a pie in the sky sci-fi type of thinking. That's what's already going to happen. And I think it's going to happen the adoption is going to happen very quickly. And by 2025, we're going to see, a predominantly autonomous fleet on the.
So keep in mind that automotive industry experts have said basically with normal cars that it takes about 8 years to mostly replace the auto fleet. Okay, that's the typical cycle. You don't see many cars on the road that are older than 8 years. All right, that's what the experts will tell you. But with the autonomous vehicle, it will probably happen a lot faster because this isn't just an upgrade. This is a game changer in so many ways.
On the road.
One of your central arguments is that when this happens, when we don't need to be tied to the car as the driver and owner of it, we'll have a lot fewer cars on the road. The argument is that so much of the life of a car is spent sitting doing nothing.
Yeah, the statistics are pretty staggering. You look at, the average car is used about 4% of the time. The rest of the time it sits, which is why.
So just understand that the average car is used 4% of the time, 96% of the time, the car is not being used, yet the owner has to pay for it. And this is one of the huge benefits of the sharing economy, because when you look at Lyft, Uber, Sidecar, Airbnb, all of these sharing economy type of businesses, what they've basically done is they've taken all these unused assets in the world and put them to work. And similarly, there are companies where you can rent your car out, not drive it around and not, become a driver for Lyft or Uber, but you can rent your own car. So it's not just costing you money that other maybe 96% of the time. So interesting point there too, but it gets even more interesting.
Companies like Uber are going to be, gaining a lot of popularity and running the autonomous fleets. I think in the future, people like you and I probably won't purchase or buy cars. We're just going to use cars on demand.
So that's another big question. What does that mean for the auto industry and all the jobs tied to the auto industry? Naresh, can you imagine the math on this? If a car isn't used 96% of the time on average, and mine is used even less, maybe 98% of the time mine's not being used because I hardly ever drive, that's basically like a 20-to-1 ratio, okay? So that means that you could have 1/20th the number of cars on the road. And not just that, with the autonomous component of it, once they all get to be autonomous, like the way they're predicting by 2025, which ain't that far away, okay, they could increase the packing capacity of highways by about 6-fold. So, cars can drive bumper to bumper at 100 miles an hour safely, and there would be a lot fewer cars. So, the ripple effects in the economy are huge. What does this mean to, Detroit? What does it mean to Japan? What does it mean to Germany, where so many cars are, manufactured if this happens? Now, the other thing is that, just because cars are autonomous doesn't mean people won't have their own car the way most people do nowadays. But it's an interesting question. I was reading this techno-futurist article a while back that talked about how self-driving cars could actually be unowned. In other words, they could own themselves. Amazing. But it's amazing what it means to people who own properties in high land value areas. This is a game changer for real estate. Keep listening. He addresses that.
Should I be excited because it's going to be cheaper for me, or should I worry because there may be fewer jobs?
Well, I think that you should be excited on both fronts. I think that there's going to be fewer jobs in the existing industries, but I think that it's going to create a huge amount of new jobs in the future. I mean, we're talking $1 trillion is spent on purchasing and maintaining cars every year, and so that's a huge amount of disposable income that's going to be freed up. I think it's going to spur a lot of innovation.
So an extra $1 trillion to spend on real estate, maybe people could afford nicer places to live. Maybe they could upgrade their housing because they're spending less money on transportation. Maybe they could upgrade, take more vacations, eat better food, have more entertainment. I mean, there's a lot of implications to that, right, Naresh?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. This is, in my opinion, this is a good thing. I'm just a little skeptical about the dates that they mentioned in the clip that you played. 2025 is 9 years or 10 years, or almost 9 years away. And do you really think people are going to adopt this that quickly?
Oh, yeah. I think this is a giant revolution. I think between this and literally 3D printing, we are going to see massive changes in the world and the economy. And we've got to think about this as in terms of the way we invest. I mean, when you look at the self-driving car is arguably a robot, okay? It is a robot. And the other types of robotics are just astounding what's coming up. Some of them very scary. These sort of military and police type robots. Remember the movie RoboCop? There's a lot of potential bad uses for this stuff, but overall it's pretty good, okay? So let's keep listening in because he touches on the real estate topic.
But it's also going to be faster and cheaper. They did a study and they said that if New York City's taxi fleet was autonomous, you'd see pickup times in the neighborhood of 30 seconds and a trip would cost 50 cents a mile. So
we'll see if the taxi union thug cartel allows that to happen.
That's a pretty attractive proposition.
When we look at the way we live, it's not just the fact our houses often have garages tacked onto them or our streets have extra lanes for parking, but literally the way we live is based on using a car the way we use it now. How would that change in the vision you have?
I think that there's big impacts in terms of planning. I mean, you're not going to have to worry about parking. Traffic is going to be a thing of the past. Probably the biggest thing that I look at in terms of the way the world is going to change is that, and a lot of times now people have to live very close to a city because of commuting reasons, but when you have autonomous cars that can go at 120 miles without traffic, all of a sudden living within, 100 miles.
And he meant 120 miles an hour without traffic, okay? Not 120 miles in range. But pretty interesting there, isn't that? I mean, that is a game changer. I mean, all of the garages that could be converted to an extra room if people didn't own their car. What was that statistic? I shared it on a recent show and I can't remember. That the typical city or town is, I think, 40% parking or something like that. And if I kind of doubted that statistic at first, but then I just walked down the street and I thought, look at all these parking spaces, parking lots, parking on the street, parking in driveways, parking in garages, whether they be, your own garage in your house or a commercial garage in a parking structure. I mean, what a giant change, huh?
Oh yeah, this is just to hear this interview. It sounds amazing, without a doubt. But again, in 9 years, this is what our world is going to be. Well, the United States, maybe not the entire world, but this is what it's going to be like. If it picks up that quickly, man, we're going to be living in a very, very different world.
Yeah, definitely. And I think a better one in a lot of ways. Here we go.
Miles of a city is pretty reasonable. So I think you're going to see the urban sprawl sort of translate to a suburban sprawl, and we're going to see a much, more spread out environment overall.
So there's always been this move towards cities, right? And now what he's saying, and I agree with it, that, people can really live in suburbia without much consequence. First of all, the question is, do they even need to get in a car and go to work? Because, obviously technology has changed that game completely. It certainly changed it for my business. But then if they do need to get in a car and show up someplace in person, that becomes so much easier so much less expensive, so much simpler. So a lot of real estate implications.
Good thing or bad thing from where you sit?
I think it's a great thing. I think innovation is always good. I think that, when people are performing the same tasks over and over and over again, like driving, it's wasted effort. And I think that we're going to free up a lot of human capital, a lot of smart people to work on other things instead of wasting something like 30 or 40 hours they're spending every year in traffic.
Before we let you go, address the one concern people always have about this, and that's the notion of the loss of freedom. People who even will tell you, I don't mind sitting in traffic.
I like my car.
I like my car, and I can control when I sit in traffic.
I think it's going to be less freedom for some people and more freedom for others. I think when you look at someone who's trying to get away from a bank robbery, probably considerably less freedom. But someone who has no mobility and maybe can't drive themselves, or someone who wants to be working while they're driving, I think those types of people are going to have a lot more freedom.
Appreciate your time this morning. Zach Cantor, a futurist whose piece about the autonomous car is worth a read. It's online at cbssf.com in the Tech and Science section. We'll also post a link from the KCBS Radio Facebook page.
Just wanted to make sure I got all the right attributions in there. But fascinating stuff. Folks, think about it. If you're a soccer mom or a soccer dad that's listening, can you imagine how, the burden on parents would be dramatically reduced because you wouldn't necessarily have to chauffeur your kids around. Maybe that will just be in an automated fashion. I don't know. Of course, there's issues with the kids' safety and so forth, but a lot of that is becoming automated too. A lot of that is becoming taken care of. This one hugely popular app right now, I think it's called Walk Me Home or something like that. It's like a safety app. There are safety apps for smartphones with, little panic buttons on them and, things where you can alert, a certain trusted circle of friends that you're walking from here to here and they can just track your movements if you're walking down, through a city at night in a sketchy area. So that could be true for kids too, for elderly people. There are just so many implications, but everybody has bemoaned the concept of urban sprawl and suburban sprawl. And first, in the 50s, when all that kind of began and the automobile became so romanticized and so popular, it was great. The suburbs, that's when they really began. And now, I think there could be a trend back toward the suburbs. So again, when you're thinking of a real estate investment, think about this. There's a lot of implications to it, and mostly good. But the fear we have is high unemployment. What will be the unemployment problem? And that brings us back to, Naresh, the labor content fallacy, which basically says that people have unlimited desires and will just dream up something else they want, and other entrepreneurs and humans will dream up how to fulfill it, right? Just a reminder, you're listening to Flashback Friday. Our new episodes are published every Monday and every Wednesday.
Yeah, well, initially there's going to be it's gonna have to take some time for this to figure itself out. So yes, unemployment will be a problem kind of early on in this process. But I think in the end, as you know, technology is usually great, almost always great for the economy. It automates things. It improves the quality of lives that we're able to live. And the unemployment is going to shift. I think people will find a way to innovate and to find more work to kind of blend into this advancement. So
you are so right. Just remember, though, the thing that really gets people, in the last economic downturn, what really got people is the lag time when the change is occurring. Okay, that's what gets you, is the changeover period. And so, when those workers need to be retrained, when all of this stuff needs to happen, right? That's the hard part.
Right, and it'll be interesting to see how these car companies, you brought this up earlier, how are they going to innovate? They're going to be forced to innovate. What are they going to do? How are they going to pivot? Again, I don't think they're going to go completely out of business. They'll find a way. A lot of these companies have been around for for a long, long time, and they've had to face some trying times. They've had to face all sorts of technological advancements. But like you said, there's going to be a lag. There is going to be a lag.
There will definitely be a lag. But at first, it's going to be a booming, for the next maybe 10 years of the automotive industry, for the companies that are innovative, that are really on the front lines of the autonomous vehicle revolution, business is going to be great for them, because think of the tens of millions of cars out there and the concept of replacing the entire fleet. And especially if that pace of replacement hastens, if it moves faster, they're going to have booming business at first. It's going to be phenomenal for them. But then ultimately, yes, they have to change, and hopefully they'll get into self-driving airplanes and some other cool stuff. But, I think, Naresh, it's worth mentioning when we talk about this labor content fallacy is this article by Gerald Huff, okay? And this is in a website, medium.com. And he makes some interesting observations, and he talks about it. He says the phenomenon is most obvious with digital goods, okay? And he talks about my girlfriend, Taylor Swift. Yeah. So he says this. He says that the phenomenon is most obvious with digital goods, which exhibit essentially zero marginal cost of production. Imagine 100 million consumers who save money due to automation in some industry, and then they use that money to go buy 100 million downloads of Taylor Swift's latest hit. How many new jobs are created by that 100 million in spending? And of course he's making the assumption that it's like $1 per song, right? It's sort of the iTunes model. And it's really going to be $1.29, I'm sure. But he says basically zero new jobs were created by that spending. And then he says, what if 100 million people paid $1 a year for the WhatsApp messaging service, right? WhatsApp is free. Of course, Facebook bought it for $19 billion a couple years ago, okay? But what if they paid $1 a year? How many new employees would WhatsApp need to hire, since they handled 450 million customers with a staff of less than 50 people? And he says the answer is not many. Of course, he doesn't talk about their supply chain. So, someone needs to make more servers, because that'll be more load on the servers and the computer infrastructure. Cisco's going to sell some more routers. Okay, so there is that, but that stuff's pretty durable. It doesn't, of course there's Moore's Law and, the 18 months that it's going to be, doubled in power and so forth. But, mostly that stuff's kind of durable. And a lot of it is manufactured through robotics. So where does this go? Where does it go? It's going to be an interesting time. It really is. It really is.
I'm excited about it. Listening to these futurists, listening to you, we're not too far away. And it's going to be a very, very interesting time to see how the United States is going to improve technologically by leaps and bounds, and how this is going to affect, in turn, the economy and real estate.
Yeah, it's really, like I always say, it's an amazing time to be alive. And we just like to occasionally talk about some of this broader, more macro stuff, if you will, on the show, because most real estate investors are just not thinking about this stuff. They're thinking, well, I'm a buy and hold investor, and that's a good strategy. And I'm going to buy this property, and I'm going to keep it for 27.5 years. But if you're paying extra, if you're paying a premium to buy what's now considered to be well-located properties with prime locations, you might be very disappointed with your investment as the autonomous car gains traction and as the sharing economy gains traction, because that may just not be that big a deal. And we're not even to the point of beam me up Scotty. I mean, this isn't the transporter room, which we might eventually have that too. So it's an amazing time to be alive, right?
Oh, yeah. This is very exciting stuff.
All right. Well, folks, go to jasonhartman.com and lots more information, lots more great podcasts there. I want to mention also, Naresh, I wish you were joining us for this. You're an East Coast guy, but you're not going to be coming to this one. But it's our Newport, Rhode Island adventure with the Venture Alliance. That's my private mastermind group. Of course, some of our clients have chosen to take the leap and come into the Venture Alliance early, so we appreciate them joining. But go to jasonhartman.com, click on events, and that's going to be fantastic. Providence and Newport, Rhode Island for the Venture Alliance Mastermind, 5-star dining, intimate mastermind sessions with real estate entrepreneurs from across the country, maybe around the world. Who knows who might come from around the world and join us too, maybe some of our European listeners. That's going to be a great event. We're doing a side trip the day before to Martha's Vineyard as well. So you're welcome to join us for that if you really want to get some really cool friend and hangout time with us. It would be great to have you. Again, small, intimate setting, and go to jasonhartman.com, click on events for that. And by the time you hear this, we should have a new site up. And I'm just going to give the domain name again. It's venturealliancemastermind.com. So by the time you hear this, that should definitely be up. We got a great new website up for that with video and some good content there. venturealliancemastermind.com. venturealliancemastermind.com. So join us for that. And hey, Naresh, I know you let me do most of the talking today as usual, but thanks for being on and helping me out.
No, thank you, Jason. It was good.
I've never really thought of Jason as subversive, but I just found out that's what Wall Street considers him to be.
Really? Now, how is that possible at all?
Simple. Wall Street believes that real estate investors are dangerous to their schemes because the dirty truth about income property is that it actually works in real life.
I know. I mean, how many people do you know, not including insiders, who created wealth with stocks, bonds, and mutual funds? Those options are for people who only want to pretend they're getting ahead.
Stocks and other non-direct traded assets are a losing game for most people. The typical scenario is you make a little, you lose a little, and spin your wheels for decades.
That's because the corporate crooks running the stock and bond investing game will always see to it that they win. This means, unless you're one of them, you will not win.
And unluckily for Wall Street, Jason has a unique ability to make the everyday person understand investing the way it should be. He shows them a world where anything less than a 26% annual return is disappointing.
Yep, and that's why Jason offers a one-book set on creating wealth that comes with 20 digital download audios. He shows us how we can be excited about these scary times and exploit the incredible opportunities this present economy has afforded us.
We can pick local markets untouched by the economic downturn, exploit packaged commodities investing, and achieve exceptional returns safely and securely.
I like how he teaches you how to protect the equity in your home before it disappears and how to outsource your debt obligations to the government.
And this set of advanced strategies for wealth creation is being offered for only $197.
To get your Creating Wealth Encyclopedia Book 1, complete with over 20 hours of audio, go to jasonhartman.com/store.
If you want to be able to sit back and collect checks every month, just like a banker, Jason's Creating Wealth Encyclopedia series is for you. This show is produced by the Hartman Media Company, all rights reserved. For distribution or publication rights and media interviews, please visit www.hartmanmedia.com or email media@hartmanmedia.com. Nothing on this show should be considered specific personal or professional advice. Please consult an appropriate tax, legal, real estate, or business professional for individualized advice. Opinions of guests are their own, and the host is acting on behalf of Platinum Properties Investor Network, Inc. exclusively.